Here we go. Right, let me get this into a couple groups, guys. Waiting on Clemens to hop in. I'm gonna have to try something else. While we're waiting, guys, feel free to tell us where you're from so we can shout you guys out. Mike, quick. We'll get this into a couple of Facebook groups. Let everybody know what we're doing. Almost there. And so a little bit about Clemens, guys, while we're just waiting. Clemens is an immigrant from Germany who I met in an event in Tampa. He came over here when he was like 18, and he got a wife so he could keep his green card. And he did his first 2 deals and had his wife sign for him so he could actually do the deals, which is pretty crazy. Almost done. All right, see it, bro. Let's see if we got Clemens in here now. Still no Clemens. There he is. What's going on, man? We're already live. Hi, Martha.
Hey, man. Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course, bro. This was on me. I was organizing some of our marketing, and you texted me, and I completely forgot. I was just kind of in the tunnel.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. I know how it is.
You're cutting out a little bit, man.
Okay. Hang on a second.
Almost there.
Okay, how about now?
It's a lot better. Awesome, man. So could you just tell everybody where you're from? What's going on, Mark?
Hang on, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me at all? Oh boy. Hey, Martha.
Hang on, let me log back in because I can't hear you.
Oh dang. Okay. What we'll do, we'll just keep it live. So what's going on, Vam? So one thing that's going on in our business right now is, hey Jenna, is we just started opening up new virtual markets with something that I want to play around with a little bit more. I got this idea from Vic. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, is that working?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. Sorry, man.
Sweet. I mean, so I'll finish off. We opened up 3 new virtual markets. And my whole idea, I got this idea from Vic, was we want to niche down as tight as possible in those markets and see if we could just dig really deep in those instead of digging deeper in our own market. It's a little bit different, but that's what we're doing. And we just opened up like Sacramento, Indiana, and what was the other one, Las Vegas.
Okay.
To see if we can pull properties out of there on our really niche lists. And that was honestly just taking up time for the listeners. But introduce yourself, man. What do you do? What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Clemens Walter. I'm originally from Germany, as you will be able to tell by my accent. I moved to the States 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago now. I was just on vacation. I was in San Diego just vacationing for a month. At the time, I was going to go to university back in Germany, and decided not to come back to Germany. So I was in the US all of September, and then was going to go back in October. Decided to stay. Actually got married 2 months later, which we had to do in order for me to be able to stay here. And then I was waiting for my green card. And as I was waiting for my green card, I essentially had no way of legally working in the US because I didn't have a social security number. So initially, I found some under the table jobs. I worked as a plumber for about 5 months, which was a shitty job, no pun intended. And then I honestly, man, I was just desperate at a certain point. I was like, fuck, did I make the wrong decision to come to the US? Because I had nothing here, you know?
Yeah.
I was making like $1,000 a month. So I had no money. I think I had, at the time, I probably had like $1,000 in my bank account. And I was, you know, I honestly was considering potentially having to go home and work. The only problem was that I had to make the decision to either stay or leave for good, which would have meant that I could have never come back to the US, because if you are in the green card application process, you can't leave the country. If you leave the country, you're out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. So I just went on Google. I was just like, what can I do? I literally typed in, what can I do in the US if I'm not legally allowed to work? And then one of the first things that popped up was Ty Lopez. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
So he had Jalen White do like a wholesale course for beginners on his platform. And I think the course was like $800. So it was literally all the money that I had. I was like, okay, you know, Jalen seemed legit. He did like a 1-hour preview. I listened to the whole thing on YouTube, and just decided to take a leap of faith, buy the course. The course, to be honest, it was good for beginners. It was basic shit. You know, definitely not enough information for someone like me who didn't know anything about real estate to get started. So initially starting out, one of the takeaways that I got from the course was, okay, I can start marketing on Craigslist. So I just posted Craigslist ads in my city, Charlottesville. I posted one in Richmond, and then one in Harrisonburg, which is like an hour and a half away. And waited a week, 2 weeks, nothing happened. Finally got one phone call from Harrisonburg. I'd never been to Harrisonburg. A guy called me, told me that his dad had just passed away, and he was some sort of army vet, and the house was a big mess. He was mentally ill, and he did not want to go inside the house. He didn't even want to see it. So I scheduled an appointment with him, went on the appointment, didn't know anything. So I just printed out a contract that I found online, didn't even understand half the things that were written in the contract. I had Jalen did a good job at explaining how to estimate the ARV by pulling comps. So I felt fairly confident in that and estimating how much the house is worth. So I met the guy there. He signed the contract for $85,000. And then I handed him $100 and thought, okay, well, now I'm just going to sell this piece of paper and that's it. And I'm going to get a bunch of cash. I didn't know what a title company was. So he asked me, he was like, so what title company are we using? I said, what's the title company? I didn't know. So he had to educate me on pulling title, what a title company is, how that whole process worked. So he was an angel, man. Like 99% of sellers would not have gone
right. They would have backed up, like, you don't know what a title company is, but you're telling me you're going to pay cash for my house.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. And then again, Craigslist, man, I posted the deal on Craigslist, which honestly he could have done, right? So I was lucky that he didn't look on Craigslist because I know that he's active on Craigslist. So he didn't see that, luckily. I then found 2 people that were interested and sold it to one. Now, the only contingency that that the seller gave me was that I had to close it in 10 days or less.
Oh, wow.
And that's the only time he was willing to give me. So at the time, I didn't know that was pretty unrealistic. But I found a title company. They pulled title for me in 3 days. I had the whole deal done in 5 days. So from start to finish, it was like a 6 or 7 day process.
Wow.
I sold 91, so I made $6,000.
And that was your first deal?
That was my first deal. Yeah. So
and,
you know.
What'd you do with the money?
I invested some of it. I took $2,000, put it back into marketing, purchased a list, which I didn't have before. So that was the first time I pulled a list on ListSource and just started cold calling.
Okay. Your wife had to sign the contract beforehand, or what? Like, how did that work?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I technically could sign the contract, but I think there's some sort of special tax for foreigners. I think it's like a 15% tax. So I had her sign the contract. So she came out with me both times and signed both times.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And so what was your next deal after that? And did you ever like have any mentors at the beginning, or you just kind of willy-nilly Wild West throwing stuff out there, seeing what happens?
Willy-nilly Wild West, man. The cold calling, I got leads. I was cold calling every day for about 2 months. Got leads, but no deals. And then I just started walking around town here in Charlottesville and looking for abandoned homes. I found one that didn't look abandoned, but I looked inside and quickly realized had to have been vacant for at least 10 years. So skip traced the owners. There were five heirs. They were not on the same page. So I followed up with them for another month, trying to get them on the same page. Eventually, I convinced all of them to meet me there, which was an awkward meeting because 4 out of the 5 were not talking to each other.
Oh, wow.
But I still got them to agree to a price, and that was a slam dunk deal. I got it for 75, sold it for 105, made 30 grand, and that was the real start to wholesaling. Because prior to that, I had 5 grand. I put 2 grand into marketing. The 3 grand, I was living on because I had quit my job at the time. I quit the plumbing thing because I was like, I'm going like full time. I'm doing this full time. Yeah.
Wow. And so what'd you do with that 30 grand? And then how did you start to scale your business? Because I mean, now you're in 3 different markets, correct?
Now I'm in actually moving into my 4th market now.
Okay. And so what did it look like from that 30 grand check to 6 months after that? And what did you do to like get to where you are?
Yeah. So the guy that I sold the second property to, he's a wholesaler out of Richmond, Virginia. His name is Todd Miller. And I sold the deal to him, and he was impressed by how I got it and was like, hey man, I'm looking to hire an acquisitions manager. Are you interested in a job? And for me, that was, at the time, it was a no-brainer because I had no idea about systems. I knew about VAs, and I knew about, a bunch of the different things that you can do, but I didn't feel confident in spending my own money just yet.
Yeah.
So I probably would have and just started, learning, trial and error. But I just decided to go work for him.
How important do you think that was? Because like I worked for another investor for like 1.5 years, and it was the best thing I could ever done.
So I think I worked for him from August until May of last year. And it was probably the most crucial step of them all, right? Because even though at the end, I realized some of the things that I would do differently, and we were just not a good fit anymore because I did have bigger aspirations. And, it's a tough job being an acquisitions manager. I got him probably about 10 to 12 deals when I was working for him. So I knew that I could get deals on my own. It was also part of my job was lead acquisition too. So I knew some of those at least I could have done by myself. And so, I feel like I was able to help him. I made him a bunch of money for the time that I worked for him. And then just picked up on all the different things. I learned about VAs. I learned about some of the problems with VAs. I learned about problems with call center agencies. How to build an operation. I think he had 3 VAs. He had his rental portfolio manager and then another manager. I'm super grateful to him that he gave me the opportunity to work for him. And essentially, and he knew from the very beginning, because I was upfront with him and I told him that I want to do this on my own. So he knew that, and so for him to give me the shot and knowing that I'm probably going to be his competition at some point was definitely a cool thing for him to do.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd tell anybody who wants to get started, I mean, I'd said the same exact thing, like, hey, I want to be where you are. Like now he has like 100-something units and he's on to like bigger, better things. I don't even think he wholesales anymore, but I was like, I'm doing this to learn how to be like you. Like, yeah. I don't want to work for you forever. And that's just kind of how I laid it out. So at least that way, that transition wasn't like, oh, what, you're leaving, Yeah.
Yeah. So you worked for him for an entire year?
Yeah, I worked for him I came home from Seattle, started a home inspection business like that summer. And then towards like the end of the summer, he just told me I just like met him at a real estate meetup and I started knocking doors for him. Then I worked for him for like another year plus. Last year was my first year on my own.
Yeah, same here.
Last year was like my first full year on my own. I worked for him for like a year and a half before that, a year probably. And yeah, man, it was worth it 100%. Yeah, it was a year and a half because this will be like 3 years now that I've been in real estate technically.
Yeah.
But it's been a grind. And I mean, he taught me so much multifamily wise, even how to carry myself as a businessman.
Right.
And be professional instead of telling old dudes, hey man, what's going on, talking to them the right way, building rapport the right way. I mean, I didn't know anything about sales, dude. I was just a football player.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about business, sales. I had a degree in communication, but there's a bullshit degree. And I didn't even finish because I dropped out to work for him because I could take my son to his office, but I couldn't take my son to school.
Oh, wow.
And so he was like, yeah, man, I don't care if you bring your son. And my son was like a newborn at the time.
Yeah.
And so I just pretty much quit going to school. And I was like, I don't need a degree to be successful. I was like, I'm going to prove to everybody that I don't need a degree. My parents weren't too happy. But I just ended up doing that and just committed. And then now here I am. Like, obviously, what would I have been doing with a communications degree anyways, but doing sales for some big company,
Right.
And now I make way more money than I ever would if I had worked for someone else or got some corporate job.
Yeah. So how would you say that the transition worked out from you, from going from working for him to then starting something on your own?
Oh, it was shitty, bro. It was shitty. Oh, it was shitty for like the first 3 months.
Okay. Yeah. Same
like
here.
Starving, living off of bananas and rice with my son. Shitty. Like, it was awful. We did like one deal for like $5,000 and I had to get an online marketing sales job. But I mean, it was worth it.
Yeah.
But again, it's just like right now, as like you see in your business, if you turn off marketing, bro, it's over. Like if you ever turn off your marketing, it'll take 3 months for that to pick back up.
Right.
You have like leads ready to pop and everything ready to go. And so again, these people who are starting off brand new, some people will just luck out like you did, like, oh yeah, it was my first one, blow, I popped it off. But if you're just starting out, more likely than not, unless you can get a really good pre-foreclosure lead, like a lot of these leads take nurturing for 3 months to a year, I'd say, on average, of just pushing them through, nurturing them. One thing happens, another thing happens. And so that's what it was for me.
Right. Not even to mention that it even just in the time that I've been wholesaling, it has gotten noticeably more competitive.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. When I first started out, I cold call unknown equity absentee owner list. Had virtually zero competition. Every once in a while, like maybe every 20 people I talked to, they had talked to someone else, and that was enrichment. And now it's almost every single person has at least been contacted at some point in time by another investor or wholesaler. So that complicates things even more, especially for people just starting out. So yeah, I can see that being, even more difficult than when I started. And honestly, man, I did, luck was involved.
I mean, we prepare for luck. Luck comes to the people who are prepared.
Yeah.
But you were prepared for that situation.
And who are committed, right? Because I was all in. I had no job. I don't think I could have gotten the old job back. So literally my last resort would have been finding whatever, reaching out to my parents and borrowing money from them, I didn't want to do that. So that was just pushing me all the time. And I feel like, and I have talked to a few people that have reached out to me wanting to, just pick my brain about how to get their first deal. And like the number one thing that I see from the people that do make it and the people that don't, and that just, never get a deal, is biggest difference probably is that they have something, anxiety, man. That's the biggest difference. The people that don't have anxiety, that don't have any sort of fear that's pushing them to get their first deal, they're not,
Right. And you got to commit, dude. Like, and my thing was like, I had no money coming in. And the only reason I got a job is because donating blood and selling everything I had wasn't enough money to pay the rent and feed us. Right. But then even when I got a job, all that money still just went back into wholesale marketing. Like nothing changed. Like, okay, work this job for however long. I worked it for like 2 months. It was awful. But all that money would still just go back into marketing and systems and lists. Because I know, like, okay, I know that all this works. I know what to do. This is what I have to do. And I think a big thing is a lot of people have other options.
Right.
Like, I don't encourage people just quitting your job and jumping right into it. But like, if you burn the ships, man, and there's nothing else you can do, like for me, I was like, I have no other life skills, dude. Like, I don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah.
This is what I got to do. And so that's kind of just how I ended up into it. And I just decided to burn the ships. Like when I dropped out of college, I knew I was burning the ships.
Yeah.
100%. And so what does your business look like now, man?
So going back to, what was it? May of last year, I had quit working for the investor from Richmond. I then went to Germany for a month and sort of started preparing everything, getting my own LLC, because I wanted to set it up the right way, right? And I had saved up some money at the time. I think I probably had about 15 grand to start my own business. But with the difference that I knew what to do, I at that point, I had made connections to some amazing virtual assistants. One guy in particular who was my first hire, and he sort of found everyone else. And built the team in the Philippines for me, and I could not have done it without him. So he was probably the most crucial thing for me to do at the very beginning, is to commit to hiring him. And then at the time I had done it for a long time, so same as you. The first 2 months were rough because I had to start building my lead list. And so the first 2 months, I would say, were just all about getting leads, putting them into the system, following up, right? And then month 3, we had 2 prior months of lead generation that then eventually started paying off. And I got, again, lucked out, man. Got 2 deals, got a $15,000 deal and a $45,000 deal. So made 60 grand. And then shortly after, that's when we met at Raphael's event.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, it only takes as cheesy as it sounds, Maxwell's like, you're only 1 deal away. I mean, the average American makes what, like 30 grand a year? And like, you can make that in a single deal and then completely build out your entire business and have capital reserves to run if you do it lean enough.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Yeah, exactly. So, another crucial thing was going to the event and not becoming complacent, not becoming comfortable. I had made that mistake probably once before. I would say to a degree, I did waste the $30,000 because I started working for the guy in Richmond. But I didn't really do anything with the money, nothing smart, just blew it. Because I was excited to have some money. So I went on vacation with my wife. And so And then there were some bad times in the winter where I was almost broke again. And then, it was clear to me, okay, I have to do this differently this time. I can't celebrate, having some money in the bank now. So the first thing I did was book my tickets to Raphael's event. And that was probably the first time that I realized the power of spending, spending large amounts of money on your business.
Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit more on like what aspect?
Yeah. So, again, for me, I had the most money I had ever put into my business was like a couple grand. So to go and fly to Tampa and spend $5,000 for a weekend seemed outrageous to me.
Mm-hmm.
And going back and forth, I talked to my wife. I was like, "Oh, should I do that? Should I not?" Because I was still coming at it from like a lack mentality, right? I still didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know how business worked. I was looking at it in terms of spending instead of looking at it in terms of investing.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was like a vacation. And that's how I was justifying it to myself too, which made it difficult to make the decision. Now then, as I was there, I met all the people and started talking to people, started talking to you and some other guys that I met, obviously Raphael and his team. I just started, realizing, just learning so much about scaling, about, problem of being confined to one market. That was probably the biggest thing, because at the time, Richmond is not a super big market. So yeah, I mean, I basically, after the event, I had all the tools that I needed to go all virtual. And prior to that, I was still going on appointments. I was still, going on every single appointment pretty much. And then that's when I started making the shift to saying, I'm doing it all virtual. And then again, committing to that, right? I could have stuck with my old business model that had been working for me, but then I would have not, the whole virtual thing would have been difficult because I had to make a clear cut. So I would even set myself the rule that even in my hometown in Charlottesville, I would try and lock it up virtually.
Okay. What's your biggest difficulty locking stuff up virtually?
Yeah. Say that again.
What's been your biggest difficulty locking stuff up virtually? Like, what's been your biggest difficulty in that transition?
It was surprisingly easy. All the concerns that I had proved to be minor stuff that could easily be worked through, right? One of the big things, obviously, is how do people react to a guy who is calling them with a German accent from Charlottesville, with the Charlottesville area code, and he's talking to them in Oklahoma. That was the first virtual market that I went into, Oklahoma. And for one, I picked the right market. Oklahoma is a great market. People are easygoing. They like doing face-to-face business. And so no one really seemed to have a problem with it, And then once I did my first 2 deals, I could then fall back to the guys that I knew locally. And I have a guy there who's my boots on the ground, Michael. He's handling a lot of stuff for me now. And he, when people are skeptical about the whole virtual thing, I tell them, well, I have a team that's working for me in Oklahoma. And then having a great title company was probably another big key to that. I would say anyone who's trying to take their business virtual has to build a good relationship with the title company. Just because I can't tell you how many times I would tell the seller to call the title company and say, hey, call Susan Mitz with Old Republic Title. She'll be able to tell you what I did this year, how many properties I purchased. On top of that, I'm double closing on all of them. She's letting me double close with the funds of the end buyer, which essentially means that she's using the end buyer's funds to transfer them into my name, at least temporarily. So I am actually purchasing the house. I'm not assigning it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you can pretty much do it in every single state. It just depends on the title company and what they're comfortable with. So I now have a title company even in Virginia that's willing to do that.
And why do you do that instead of assignments? Because assignments are so easy.
Well, the double closings are easy too. I mean, all I have to do is sign a bunch of paperwork and get it notarized and ship it to Oklahoma, which takes me an hour per closing at the very most. And I don't ever have the problem of having to, potentially have the seller see the assignment fee on the hood statement, which can happen. And even though that's not a big risk, and I'm still assigning here in Richmond most of the time, it's great to build your reputation in terms of, again, that relationship with the title company and the seller, and really establishing that relationship between them before a contract even gets signed. And I have probably about 2 to 3 deals, I'd say, where that was the key factor in me getting the deal as opposed to the competition.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't even know. We don't do any double closing. Everything's an assignment. I know for us, some title companies are trying to limit how big our assignment fee can be.
What?
Yeah, so like trying to make it like it can only be 10% of the purchase price.
Wow. I've never heard of that.
Assignments can be seen as unethical and seller can back out if they see them. The way we get around that is blind HUDs. So we do blind HUDs to where nobody can see them. Mm-hmm. Or if not, we have Dana Bustamante here in Fresno, and we don't do blind HUDs, and she still just explains it to them. And if anybody ever comes back to us, it's like, yeah, we're going to sell off our equity in the deal. Because that's all you're doing. You have a vested interest and you're selling off your equity.
You're just selling the equity, right?
If I wanted to close on it, I could close on it. If we wanted to wholesale it, we could wholesale it. And then as long as you have like the private money lined up and everything else, it shouldn't be a problem.
Right. You could still do transactional funding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing, it's never been an issue for us. I really don't know anybody in our market who it's been an issue with. And if you're brand new, I'd tell you to at least partner up with someone or something else just to feel comfortable and know how to traverse that whole situation.
Right. Now, I've never had a problem with it either. Again, for me, I'm willing to jump through the hoops of having to do a bunch of paperwork if that means that I can get to tell my seller, hey, I purchased 5 homes last month. And you can see that, it's on the records. You can call Susan. She's she can tell you that. Now, if I did a standard assignment, she couldn't do that legally. She wouldn't be able to tell them that. Mm-hmm. Because she would be lying,
And then with me now, I just see wholesaling as an exit strategy, right? Because now like we're buying rentals and we want to, it's like, okay, do I want to wholesale this? Do I want to keep it as a rental? Do I want to flip it? Like wholesaling is just an exit. Like, okay, I bought it at this. What can I do with it that's going to make the most financial sense?
Right. Right.
And really, I don't think anybody truly stays in wholesale. They just wholesale to get their money. And then they obviously start building their portfolio and building other businesses. Like it is a great introduction into business.
Yeah. I don't know who's a successful, who has a successful wholesaling operation who didn't eventually venture out and use that money to do other things, right? And even though, for me, I'm doing the same thing right now. I invested a lot of money this year into 2 Amazon automation stores. So for me, I'm still, I had to make the decision, okay, what do I want to do with the money now? Do I want to buy some rental properties? Do I want to invest in some other businesses? And so I just chose the Amazon automation because it's definitely, there's a potential for much higher returns, as you know. But then, I'm saving up money right now to heavily invest in rentals next year. Not doing anything just yet, but that's the goal for next year, is to pick up 1 a month.
Oh, this is a good one. Can you wholesale or flip houses in Europe?
Europe, you can. You can't technically wholesale, but what you can do is if you find it, and that's the thing. I feel like people overcomplicate wholesaling. At the end of the day, you're a deal finder. You're a deal finder and a problem solver. If you have those 2 traits and you can solve problems and you can find deals, you can be in Puerto Rico and wholesale. I mean, if I were to talk to some of my investors and tell them, hey, look, if I find you a great deal, will you just pay me out of pocket and you just close it yourself if you don't have the money? Or if, for example, in Germany, wholesaling wouldn't be legal, right? You can't assign contracts, but you can still find a deal. You can still solve people's problems. And then you can find the person that would be interested in that type of deal and they'll pay you.
Right. And I mean, you can still get funding for anything. Like money is money.
Exactly. And then the other thing is exactly that. If you have a great deal, people will give you the money because it's secured by the real estate, you know.
Awesome. And so what 4 markets are you in right now?
So right now I'm in Charlottesville, Richmond, Oklahoma, and I just moved into Nashville.
What part of Oklahoma?
Oklahoma City.
Okay. And which one's been the best and why did you pick those markets?
Good question. I'd say the best is Oklahoma in terms of my ROI, for sure, because my average cost per deal in Oklahoma is less than $1,000.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's close to $1,000, but it's less. That's not the same in Richmond. Now, obviously, my spread in Richmond is higher because the average price per house is higher in Richmond than in Oklahoma. But the volume in Oklahoma exceeds Richmond, both Richmond and Charlottesville, to a great extent. I can't really talk about Nashville just yet because I just started, so I don't feel confident in making an estimate just yet. But yeah, I'd say Oklahoma. The first month I moved into Oklahoma, I got 5 deals, and I'd say that that's my strategy now, right? Because in Richmond, once you've cycled through your home run list, your unknown equity absentee list, your tax delinquent list, and you've hit that list and you've gotten the 5-6 deals, now it becomes more difficult to find deals, right? So you have to make a decision: do I go deep into that market? Do I start really dialing down in that market and building a name for myself? And I know guys in Richmond that do more deals than I do, but they're only in Richmond, and it took them 10 years to get to that point. So for me now, the strategy is once I moved into Oklahoma, I realized, man, I'm just skimming easy deals off the top. I got 5 my first month, 3 the second month, right? And that was just from texting. I hadn't even called yet because I'm texting first. I'm texting my list first, and then we're calling it. So my VAs didn't even get to call Oklahoma. They were still calling Richmond, and I had locked up 8 deals by myself in 2 months.
Yeah, that's crazy. I like to do it simultaneously, texting and calling. And then if we get a double lead, then we'll just bring in another wholesaler and work against ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And then that way, no matter what, we get the deal.
Yeah.
I'm excited we haven't even started. I dabbled in Las Vegas a little while ago. It didn't really work out. So we're opening Las Vegas up again, probably tomorrow. And then Indiana is more for like a rental play. And I'm excited to see like what the cost per contract is because the price point is, again, so much lower. And it's a really good cash flow market. And then what was the other one? Sacramento. And that one's just, I think it's like 3 hours away. We're going to see if we can get some bigger margin deals from that. But obviously we're going to have to spend a lot more in ad spend.
Yeah. Yeah. So to go back to the texting and calling, I'm curious why you're texting and calling at the same time, because my reasoning for texting first is the efficiency of it, right? Because I can go through 3,000 texts in a day and I'm going to get 400, 500 DNCs that my guys then don't have to call, which is saving them a lot of time and making it more efficient. But at the same time, I can also see, how.
For us, right? So right now we have so much data that even if we do market to the same person twice at the same time, I'm not really that stressed.
You're not that, yeah.
Right. And like, I don't think like, okay, we're wasting money. I'm not at that scale to where like this much of a percent matters. Mm-hmm. And then right now we've even slowed down our texting and now we're completely cold call and then PPC. And then we're kind of looking into direct mail, and PPC is only in Fresno.
Yeah.
And everything else is cold call.
Okay. How is PPC working out for you?
Expensive. Mm-hmm. We haven't really gotten.
I've never done it.
Huh?
I've never done PPC.
It's expensive. We're still playing with it. We don't have a huge budget. We have like $2,000 a month. We're getting good leads, but I'd like to only do it there in Fresno until I really understand it, and then our budget, I feel comfortable spending in our other markets and everything else.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that currently I feel is still it's sort of going back to the point where I made my first hire with the VA, which at that point was you know, a tough decision. Now I'm at a point where I feel like hiring more people is the right thing to do, but then I'm still conflicted about giving up some of my profit margins. So how are you looking at that?
I hate acquisitions.
Yeah.
And so I'll give up the profit margins, is what I see. And I was talking to Raphael about this yesterday, and he was like, honestly, you have to build your culture up to where they care enough about the company and you have the right person in place so it doesn't really dip. Yeah. But I would say in any company, you're going to see your profit margins dip as soon as you pass off the acquisition.
Right. No, and that's what I did. I have a full-time acquisitions manager. I'm looking to hire another one next month. So right now I'm at a point where, you know, the acquisitions is outsourced. I'm not doing acquisitions anymore. And then really what I would need is a personal assistant. So I'm looking to hire a personal assistant now, which I think is a smart first hire before I go into hiring dispositions or anything else. Because right now I'm still handling all the dispositions, all the transactions myself, which is a lot of work. And for me, again, it's that mindset shift. I attended Tim Brott's. Do you know Tim Brott's?
Mm-hmm.
I attended his Commercial Empire webinar last month or early this month. And they talked about the importance of hiring and, you know, looking at it from a different perspective. So instead of looking at it, you know, on a yearly basis, right? Like,
1 minute, Clemens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll talk to you in like 20 minutes, man.
All right, I'll be.
Thank you. We announced this on our meetup.com and someone showed up at our office. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
So where was I at? So yeah, instead of looking at it in terms of like yearly expenditure, right? So the personal assistant would cost me 50 grand a year. Well, let's just do it for 2-3 months. Can I do that? Yeah, I can, you know, and then see how it works. And then do that over and over and over again and build your team that way.
And they'll pay for themselves too, though, is the thing.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to, and like, it's okay if you just like, okay, I'm going to hire this person on for 3 months. I lose 9 grand. It's not that big of a deal.
Exactly.
If they are worth what you pay them, and they're probably going to be worth more, you're just going to be making more money.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to get over, especially like when you're getting started out. You're like, man, I can't even afford this, right? To pay out this person, whatever else. I do not want to hire anyone in the States. I want to be all VAs. Right now, I'm looking for a VA acquisitions manager.
Okay.
The only person who will be in the States is our transaction coordinator, Rochelle, and she's awesome. I can connect you with her. I got her from Pace, and we pay her like $350 a file, and she's amazing. That'd be really the only person. All our marketing, everything else, I feel like can be run pretty proficiently.
Yeah. By
our VAs.
That's cool. So even acquisitions, you would.
That, like, I'm actively looking right now, just feel, because I know Jalen White did it.
Yeah.
He managed to do it, and he was in Memphis. If we have enough leads coming in, and then it increases our profit margins, we don't have to pay him as much, and I don't have to handle acquisitions because it's not something I really like doing. Like, it's just not something I'm excited about.
Right.
And so I just need to get it off my plate so I can focus on other things.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that's going to work out for you.
Right, it's a gamble, but
right? Like for me, it was really important for me to have Brian here in my office with me. And from when I worked for the guy in Richmond, we were not in the same place. I was in Charlottesville, he was in Richmond, and that was a problem, at least for us. And that's why I made the decision, okay, I'm only going to hire in-house. because we can hold each other accountable. It was not just good for him, it's good for me too, right? To come in every day at whatever, 9, 10 o'clock, come to the office. If it's just me, I'll be honest, I struggle with that sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, that is 100% real. And one thing, I mean, we're playing with our call center, right? Is just building a virtual culture and learning how to build the relationship and accountability, even though it is virtual.
Yeah.
Be sufficient and do your job and everything else. I know who does it right now. Brian Manley, a guy out of Phoenix, has a completely virtual business. But everyone is in the States, but there is no office. And they're absolutely destroying it right now. So I know it's possible.
Right.
Don't know in what aspect. If I'm going to go the VA route, I'll play with that first. And then if it doesn't work, okay, let's see if we can just find the best person in America to work virtually for us and then still pay them.
Yeah. I think you touched on a very important point, and that is team culture, right? So for my guys for my VAs in the Philippines, I do things that I've never seen anyone else do, at least that I know. I flew to the Philippines. I spent time with them, took them on trips. We did whatever. We went out to dinner. I took them out to the restaurants that they typically can't afford, or they don't have the money for that. So I take them out for dinner. I do team building exercises with them. And so for me to come there, and they're at least 2 of them are veterans. They're in their late 30s, 40s. They've been in the VA industry for 20 years. They told me, Clemens, no one has ever done this for us. No one has ever bothered to come here to shake our hand. So it was a tax write-off. It was a vacation. It was an awesome thing to do, and I feel like it really solidified, the team culture and bringing us closer together, even now that we're apart again. There's no way they will ever quit working for me. There's no way we will not, be working. Yeah. And now I actually made them partners on the call center agency that I'm building with them. So, I think 1, building the team culture, and 2 is compensation. You've got to pay them.
Oh yeah.
And what most investors do is a flat rate commission. That might work well for a couple of months, maybe even a year. But if you're looking at the long term and you want to build a strong team that's going to be there with you for the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to have to set not just growth opportunities for them, but also make sure that you compensate them and give them a piece of the pie so that they're excited about your company and that they feel like they are the company as opposed to they're working for the company.
Yeah.
So they are my company and they know that. So I'm paying them a percentage off of every deal they give me. And the seasoned guys, my 2 top guys, I'm paying them 5%. And that's a whole lot of money, Yeah. So if they're bringing in a $50,000 deal, they get a $2,500 commission check.
Yeah, and that's awesome. With us, we go $100, and then we have different bonus structure systems set up in our call center.
Tiered system. Yeah. You need.
What is PPC? It's PPC. It's just pay-per-click Google marketing. It is a little bit more expensive. I'd say the best way to get started off would be driving for dollars while you're cold calling, and that is number 1. Hands down, the best way to do it if you can find them yourself and everything else. But I wouldn't say just drive for dollars and don't do anything, have a list and don't do anything with it. I would drive for dollars, and then that's as you pass them, I just call them, skip trace it. If you use the GoKnock app, you can skip trace them right away. If you use IV Data, you can skip trace them right away. If you use Propstream, you can skip trace them right away. I don't know about the driving for dollars app, but if you're driving for dollars, you might as well create a list and then call them as soon as you see it. And that way you can get in the habit of just talking to people. Do you have anything else, man? We're pretty much out of time.
No, not really.
Thanks, Dale.
Thanks for having me. And, I'm curious to see how things will work out for you with, trying to get things all virtual. That's definitely very interesting.
Yeah, man. I want to be a little bit more like a digital nomad. I come to my office really just to focus.
Yeah.
Right. I can't really work from home, but I don't want to have some big old office and everything else. I'd rather have everything run virtually, and that way I can be wherever I want to be in the world. Like next month, starting like the 8th, I'm going to be out of Fresno for an entire month. I'm going to Alaska. I'm going to Utah.
Awesome.
And then, that way I can work from wherever I am and not have to worry about anything.
Yeah, same here. I'm going to be flying to Germany on Monday, and I'll be gone for 6 weeks, and I'll also go to Sweden. So.
Right. And then obviously the end goal is to be able to step out and not have to worry about it at all. But I'm not anywhere near close to that. And that's just the end goal.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, man. Thank you so much. Where can people find out more about you?
As of right now, they can just reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. I think it's Clemens_Walter. And just shoot me a message if you want to talk. If you have questions, feel free to reach out.
Sweet, man. Thank you so much, Clemens.
Cool. Thanks, brother.